call the select board meeting to order. First up is the select board reorganization.
Do we need some nominations?
So you need to do just three things at this point: elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. And the secretary's role is the most important and has the most work.
So say that one.
You want to do that on third because it's the meatiest of the group.
Well, I would.
It's really just functional. There's nothing that comes with it as a task. We provide the meeting minute services for you, so.
So it'd be the third in line for chairing though. The first two people weren't
If you
there.
think about it, yeah, as order of succession, yes. You're like the speaker of the house at the federal level.
Well, I'd like to nominate Trini.
Same thing, basically. Yeah.
Same thing. Ooh.
Different pay grade. I'd like to nominate Trini to continue to be our chair.
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Maybe there was some other nomination.
Now we would write through that one. And I'd like to nominate Larry for vice chair.
I'll second that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And for secretary?
Nominate Stephanie for secretary.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And now we just heard the majority of the work goes to Stephanie.
I did a good job with it last year, honestly, so.
You did.
That's why I have no hesitation.
Handled it so well.
With poise and a bomb.
Proved your work.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, guys.
You can, if you want, go through your committee assignments. If you want right now, you can do it at some later point. If there's no changes, then obviously there's nothing for you to do. This is where you just serve as a liaison to various boards, committees, and commissions. It's not a separately on one, but we've done it, or at least discussed it as part of reorganization. We'll see if you want to make any changes.
We have it listed, right, under business, under D.
I guess you could do it under D, yeah.
Then we'll figure it out as we look at
Okay.
who's on each maybe.
Especially if there's people here for other
Yeah.
things, we can,
But
maybe there's some people here from being on committees too.
first up, we have public comment. This is for anything that's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I have a few things.
Oh, you got one behind you that beat you.
Oh, sorry.
Just identify your name for the record, please.
I'm Pete Best. And I've never given a public commentary before. So I'll try and keep it brief. I'm here really to talk about the rec department. I've liked our rec department. We've been using for the last couple of years for summer camps. And I know Morgan Eaton has been, I'm sorry, Eaton or Easton? Easton. Easton, there we go. Has been running it the last few years. And I don't know her personally, but I know her in line of how she's kind of run the camps, and I've spoken with her on the phone a few times, whether camp related or just pool stuff. But I've called up kind of out of the blue, and she remembered my kid from like the year prior, just off the top of her head. And I don't know, I move in a few professional circles, and I feel like sometimes you can smell out when someone is competent and passionate about the job that they're doing. And I get that sense from her. And I've picked up that she's kind of the interim director, and there's a question about who is going to be the director moving forward. And I know I don't get the vote in the matter, but I'd like to vote for her, and I hope you guys would as well. The end.
Thank you. Just identify your name for the record.
Doug Boardman.
Mhm.
First thing, I was wondering if we could get some more enforcement over here to stop sign the no turn signal thing, especially during school. People not using their turn signal to go 66.
Okay. You're talking about,
Well,
Where Elm
technically, if
Street
you're going to
and-
the school, you're
Yeah.
on Route 12 and you're staying on Route 12.
correct.
You need your turn signal to go right or left. Well, there's, a lot of people don't use it to go to the right. And it really slows things down, especially during school, with hours of school buses to go.
Our chief happens to be listening, so I'm sure he's taking notes.
Okay, And the other thing was consider maybe no through trucks on Hibbert Hill. Especially during mud season. There's a lot of propane and oil trucks that use that for a shortcut to Brookfield, and it really takes a toll on the road.
Hmm.
The other thing, at roadside mowing, just a little early for this, but one year the town did it before the Chervil went to seed, and it seemed to really help. And it was, I don't know anything about it, but it seemed to help to not spread it. There's not something to consider. And the final thing is junkyard enforcement. Things are starting to pop out of the snow everywhere, and I'm wondering where we're standing with that.
Given that you're from Hibbert Hill, is it a certain location you're talking about?
There's a few on everything.
I'm not sure where that is. I mean, we tend to,
Well, a couple
I
years
believe
ago,
it went over to A&R.
a couple of years ago, I was told that it was a state thing, you know.
Yeah, you get to go with A&R.
And I wondered if it would help us. I heard something about it was introduced into the legislature this year.
I introduced the bill, has not been taken up by committee yet. Perhaps later this session, I'm not really sure. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to give municipalities the additional tools to be able to help those kinds of places get cleaned up.
And finally, I paid my taxes today.
Thank you. Any other comment?
No, thank you.
I got one behind you.
So
Identify for the record.
just, I'm sorry, Richard Doolin, and just wanted to see if this is the correct meeting where you talk about emergency manager, directors, coordinators, and et cetera, and put them into effect.
It's on the agenda. Yep.
Okay, that's what I want to check. Okay, thank you.
E or whatever it was, D. That's D. All right, next up is approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent calendar,
Motion to approve. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. New business, introduction and review of the proposed changes to the land use regulations. Yours, Jeff?
Sure, I can start. Matt is here also with the planning commission, but this started, I think the last time we presented these to the select board was at least 6 months ago. And most of the changes are due to the Vermont statute, Act 47, which primarily increases density in high density areas that have water and sewer. At the time, there are certain statutes that are required, and we had a grant with Two Rivers, Ottaquechee Regional Commission, to help us rewrite this. So we included in the updates what was required by statute and some recommendations that they had that other towns had put in that they thought would be good to put in with Randolph as well. A few of those had issues. They were fairly minor, but long story short, we decided after that select board meeting to take out anything that had any controversy whatsoever and just keep in this revision what's required by statute, and anything that had no objections that was added also. So I've got a copy of the land use regulations here, and I thought the best thing we could do is just read through them page by page.
It's only 178 pages.
It'll be fun. And just go through every section and let us know what you think.
Only if you
No.
can tell us all the discussion around each change and how you
Sure.
came to the conclusion.
So anyway, with the package, there was included a summary of all the changes. And this meeting is for discussion for the select board to bring up any concerns or questions that you have. Where we go from here is a 15-day notice to have an open hearing with the public to finally review these revisions and get the land use regulations published. So if there's any questions or comments, Matt and I can address them.
Most of these were small changes, but can you just hit the bigger ones
Yeah,
that
the
are
big one.
making the change so that people have some idea what's coming and whether they want to review it and get involved or.
Sure, yeah. One that I thought was important, it's fairly minor, but zoning permit now expires in 1 year. The new statutes require 2 years. So when a zoning permit is issued, they have two years to get the work done. That makes a lot of sense, actually. There's energy standards that are required if you're building a enclosed space that will be occupied as an office or a residence. It's the RBs, they call them, residential building energy standards, commercial. Those are a requirement to get a certificate of compliance. Probably the largest one for the town is in the residential, in the Randolph Village High Density District. Minimum lot size was 10,000 square feet, which is roughly a quarter of an acre. That has been, the statutes require that you allow at least 5 dwellings per acre. Per acre. And that works out to about 8,700 square feet, roughly. We've put in the regulations that you can go a minimum lot size in the village, in the high density area with water and sewer is 5,000 square feet. So that's probably the largest change. In the medium density districts, if there's water and sewer, the minimum lot size is 8,000 square feet. And I think before it was around 20,000 square feet. I don't know right off the top of my head, but that's been reduced substantially. But the main reason there is just to increase density of housing in areas where you have the infrastructure and try to keep the majority of the population in the districts that are designed for high district, where they cuts down on driving. They don't have to drive as fast to the schools, to the stores, to the hospital, etc. So that's the theory behind it. I don't know if you have anything that I missed.
Well, since these, the proposed changes came to you, a bunch of months ago, there was something in there about floodplains, and essentially it would have been a prohibition on development in floodplains, and that is out of there. That is out of there. So it's back to just what it has been, is what the National Flood Insurance Program requires.
Oh, another big one is ADUs, accessory dwelling units. It really allows and encourages actually people that have existing properties and housing to utilize that space either inside their house, or if they have a large lot, to build an accessory dwelling unit for other residents. And again, in areas where they have water and sewer. So those, I think, are the major ones. There's about a 4-page summary, and half of the changes are long changes where we put in there's a section on affordable housing that's required, and also cottage court developments, which is essentially developments not similar to a trailer park in my mind, but more of small accessory dwelling units all together in a certain development. So if people want to do that, it explains the requirements for that.
I'll just add that the cottage court idea is something that was already allowed in our regs. This just sort of gives it a little package that if someone wanted to, has property that would be, this is sort of an encouragement that this is something that you can do. Doesn't actually change what's allowed. But I think one other change, which I think would be important to note, what that came as a result of the change in state statute, is that any place you have a single family dwelling, we have to change our zoning to also allow a duplex in that location, which was a pretty big change statewide.
So where we go from here is warn 15 days prior to the next select board meeting. I think we'd like to get permission, and let me know if I'm procedurally doing this correctly, Trevor, but I think we need to warn it for 15 days. and we'd like to do it before the next select board meeting and have an open public hearing to finally get these through.
I think you warned the public hearing for the next select board hearing, do it at the very front end of that. And then make sure we can hit the 15-day mark. It falls weird because of with the weekly paper publication. So we'd actually probably end up warning it 20 days. Hit the 15-day minimum, which would be next Thursday.
So Matt, when you were doing all these and having the hearings, you didn't have a whole lot of public input, like public coming. I mean, they were off.
Not a lot. We
They
did have
could,
some of
but
the, we had, because we had our own, the planning commission is required to have our own public hearing on, which we
Yeah.
did. And we did remarkably had a couple of people come to our meeting who weren't on the board. And their concerns were with the things that are required by the state statute, which is higher density development allowed in the water and sewer area. So folks were concerned that they could end up with smaller lots around them and a lot more housing than they envisioned when they got there. So I think that's the concern people are going to have, is that on paper, it looks like a lot more development could be allowed. And indeed, on paper, a lot more development could be allowed in the high density areas where there's already water and sewer. That I think if you're I think when you have a public hearing, I think that's where you're likely to get comment, people feeling like maybe this is going to change the character of the area.
And I think there was really two people at the meeting, I think, right? So it wasn't like a huge group of people that thought that, but it was the few people that were there, that was their primary concern. So,
It's mostly trying to gauge whether if we add it to an already full agenda for April, if we were gonna be here till midnight. And it doesn't sound like would be, so I
Maybe
think we're fine to,
10:30 instead, but yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
Scott's got a fridge over there.
that's right.
Bring us over some seafood.
Then that won't be a problem if he gets into that stash for you.
All right, any concerns with warning this and holding it in April? We get that,
Great to get this done.
been a while. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
RACDC public hearing HCF phase 2 grant request.
Good evening. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm gonna stand up so I don't put my back to anyone here. Is anyone here specifically for the public hearing on this project, or? No? Good, then I'm gonna make it really brief. And then we can go to any questions if anyone has any. As part of the VCDP application process, we are required to hold a public hearing so that the public know that we are going out for a $500,000 request for this project. This is the third application we're submitting on behalf of this project to try and get it fully funded. It is at 3 and 5 Heading Drive. Phase 2 is the construction of 2 multifamily buildings, one with 11 units, one with 10 units. This will complete the Heading Scattered Site project, which is the renovation of 5 Church Street, 18 Forest, and 3 and 5 Heading existing buildings. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
That's the property that they're working on that used to be the old furniture.
No, that's Salisbury Square.
That's Salisbury.
That is fully funded and in construction. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Any questions for the board? I think your public hearing's done.
Thank you. But we would also ask that the board vote on the resolution for us to apply for this grant. And then sign the resolution.
This is just the standard one that we have to do with.
It's
every
just to apply,
application.
yeah.
Nothing wild and crazy. Can you hold on? It's the board's discussion right now.
Okay.
This is just the standard one that we do.
To give us
every
permission
time.
to
It
apply.
talks about you being a contact and Trevor being a contact.
Yes.
And any concerns with that one, Trevor?
No, just looking at it again real quick. I think that's fine.
Motion to approve the resolution. So moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Question about the project?
Yes. So with that project, the presidency knocking all of this funding out, is that gonna slow your project down?
No. A matter of fact, the funds that were considered most at risk were the funds from the Department of Energy in regard to the construction of our microgrid.
Okay.
And what I learned, I didn't know before, but I learned this week, is that is congressional dollars,
Congressionally
directed spending. There you go.
Okay.
And we were, it was affirmed with the Department of Energy this week in our quarterly meeting that it's secure and it's fine and
You're good to go.
we're good to go.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So everything's a green light.
But we did have a contingency fund just in case.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Do we have that resolution?
We can get it printed out real fast too. I think I can grab that. Did you sign it?
All right, we'll keep going. Consider the Vermont 250th anniversary town resolution. Looks to be like a generic one.
Yeah, you can adopt it. We can fill in the blanks or we can bring it back for actual resolution. We just wanted to, we're asked to put it on and get it in front of you. So just to clarify for everybody, it's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Vermont's 250th birthday, or Randolph's, or anybody else's. That one tripped me up for a bit. Started doing the math before I let Judy finish what the request was. I got confused. I don't think she was, but.
There's an optional section in here. I don't know that the resolution has to say that the town is providing funding.
You
I think
could,
if we decide to at a later date, we can do that. My
Yep.
preference would be not to put that statement in there. Other than that, I have no problem, although they're looking for us to establish a liaison or a local committee for this.
yeah. If you wanted to do a committee and you did adopt the resolution, we could advertise for folks interested in.
We can't fill the committees we have.
I'd be a little, nervous.
I mean, are we really committing ourselves to much?
So it
If
just-
we didn't follow through for some reason, because I could see it is a little risky, but it's easy for me to imagine that there are people who be really into this and want to participate.
There might be. Depends what they're asking, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're not saying what they want.
yeah.
I'm fine with it. I just am like,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The
What are we
concern
doing?
about filling committees, but just these kinds of things, it's kind of a once in a lifetime.
well, hopefully.
Well, I was actually, as we were talking about this, I was thinking about how I remember very well the 200th anniversary.
Yeah, you're on record there. I mean, it sounds a little bit more fun than wastewater committee, so. I think this will probably grab a chance.
Sorry,
I'm fine with that. It's just like,
Yeah,
when they come back and say, where is it?
Yeah.
Give us your person or your team.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Anybody want to approve the resolution? So moved. And sign it in April?
Minus the funding, right?
Minus
The
the-
optional.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The rest are. Did you have something specific, Tammy, or you're just hanging out and see what we're up to? Just want to make sure I move. I don't think so, right? There's nothing really else. Okay.
No.
Boards, committees and commissions.
She told me she actually finds this interesting, so.
That's, some people do.
I thought it's because she wanted to be on the board. of
Civics or.
Board of what?
I thought you wanted, you're hanging out because you want to be on the board or commission.
I might. I never.
The 250 year.
There you go.
I was actually thinking that.
Celebrate. All right, working down through on the first page, what we need is budget committee ex officio. Some of these aren't quite Who are the actual members? Ken Hafner and got voted in.
So, yep, so Ben Verratti would be off and, Scott Berkey would be on, but otherwise, that's the membership, yeah. Molly drew the plum assignment for the last year.
And as interesting as it was, I just feel like I didn't really help out or do a lot. And I just felt like maybe someone else might have more interest in the budget committee.
It was an odd year for it too, and then I think it's like other committees, as it struggles for membership, struggles for purpose. So we struggle for staffing.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of duplicative
Yeah.
conversations without much
Yeah.
forward motion. I think everybody would agree
Yeah.
on that. It was a weird year.
On that one, though, the role of the select board member is just sort of to be there and
Yeah.
bring back information if there's any to bring back, so it's not an expectation that you'll.
No, I know. I
be
just,
there or bring it.
I mean, I felt like a warm body and I just, at times I just felt bad that I was just in a seat.
Is there anybody itching to be on the budget committee? Wow, look at your friend over there, turn her head. the other way.
I looked away. We'll see if there are budgets.
We'll come back to that one. All right.
We're gonna try maybe to revive it a little bit, see if it can be useful, and then if not, the conversation you may want to have before town meeting next year is, does it make sense to have? I think we're at that spot in its life cycle.
That has to be before vote, right?
Similarly to there's also the energy committee that I was supposed to start reviving, but now there's not a lot of funding, or I don't know. Should we still keep? Yeah.
I think the energy committee, there's some grants out there, there's projects, some different pieces that could be done.
Hard to say, like, in terms of funding, but I think it's valuable having a group of people who are thinking about energy issues and efficiency issues townwide. There's different things that you can do. It's so in the past, the energy committee has focused its energies in different places. Sometimes more the town as a whole, talking, about individual residences, private property, and helping, support people in their awareness and efforts to become more efficient, and other times, more focused on town infrastructure. And I think between those two big pots, the energy committee can probably find enough to keep it, with good, worthwhile projects to work on.
Ooh, definitely wanna rewrite the charge. And whatnot to bring that back through, kind of recreate it or breathe new life into it and then go out and look for members.
And I know I've heard from people at VTC, there's definitely interest from students to be part of, at least there was last year. So anything we can do to bring, VTC,
Get
down the
back
hill
there.
to work with us would be very great.
I had a question. And it kind of was nice that you asked about an energy committee and starting one. I was wondering if now that we have rec director job open and well, I don't know if it's posted anymore. I was wondering if now would be the time with someone new in the role to start a rec committee or figure out what we want for a rec committee, get a new charge written. I would definitely be willing and like to be in on that and help that. I just thought maybe now with someone new coming in, it would be a good time to sit down with them, what they want, what we want.
Sure. Go for it.
That sounds great.
We can focus back on the energy committee for a minute and then get back over to that. Were you willing to do that then?
Yeah,
Okay,
I like started to like look into it last year and I didn't see as much like just energy to put it together, but I feel more ready to try harder.
There are resources out there to help energy communities in particular too. This is actually quite a lot of good support, help in Vermont for that.
There's grant opportunities, especially for municipalities. Also that you need, yeah,
well,
for now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind helping you, get some numbers and stuff too. Not some support outside of it.
Great.
We go through these one by one here.
Let's go back to the different, doing creation and talk about recreation.
Okay.
And so a draft charge. With Molly, there was a lot of conversation about this last year
Yeah.
when we did this, and then there was some more conversation with some of the parents and whatnot. And 2 or 3 of them offered up that they had these great examples they were gonna send, but they never arrived. So
Okay.
I think there's been a lot of conversation about different folks that had the answer. That isn't there, but in other towns are a good resource to try to figure out what
Reach out.
their charge is and what they got.
Absolutely.
Probably a draft of it and then getting together with who the new rec director is and Trevor and different folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of finalize and get it down the road. Okay. All right.
Both energy and rec advisory, we're gonna raise from the dead. I stepped out there for a second.
Yeah.
That's what someone's.
So Alyssa and Stephanie are gonna work on the energy committee charge. And Molly's gonna work on the recreation committee charge.
There is, just so you're aware, still a rec advisory page up with what that is on there.
Yep.
Little outdated.
So appointments, we have a 911 coordinator. That was Jeff Rout, who just walked out. That's usually a town employee. We'll leave him in and
We'll leave him until he leaves and then we could slide Mark over into that, because I think when we do some interim zoning, if we have some lag there, he's off to pick that up for a short period of time. If we went any longer than a couple of months, say we'd want to try to find a different resource to handle the zoning stuff.
Is that something that we have to then approve, like date to date sort of a thing? Or is it something that you can do?
You make that appointment. So when we get to maybe even the April meeting, we'll have a firmer sense of dates.
Right.
Mark is already appointed though,
The backup?
as the assistant, or I forget exactly what the assistant deputy. So there is some level of authority there anyway.
Right.
As we learned, we only had one. It's easier to have that backup even if you never need it.
right. Next up is emergency management director. This is a position we've kind of kicked around a bunch of different ways to do. Had some conversations with Scott and John about them sharing that position. To do that work. They both have agreed. They're kind of the ones that get the call anyway. I think it eliminates some of the other challenges we have with that, from purchasing authority to directing folks. How do you feel about having a co-director?
We get along, that's all good.
We get along really good. I know in prior events, when we couldn't find somebody, that was the two of them that stepped in and did it, so.
Okay, that sounds great.
Have that pretty well narrowed down. And for the emergency management coordinator role, we've used one from each fire department. That allows the transfer of information with them. And we can check with them on names for that.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it sounded like Spence was gonna stay with her, but he might. For example.
And then we have the fire warden position, which is Dan Boone. And I think that's state approves that and position.
Yeah.
We've been through that. All right. Now we're down to superintendent of cemeteries, Tri-Valley Transit. I didn't see any names.
Yeah, the cemetery super has functionally been vacant since Randy retired and moved.
That's what that does.
It's supposed to be the person who has, yeah, well,
I don't know how that makes me sound, but it does sound kind of interesting.
yeah. I think theoretically, and in some places practically, that's the individual or group of individuals that have responsibility over operation, lot sales, maintenance of cemeteries. Our system's a little weirder in that our buildings and grounds department does everything but the lot sales, basically. And so there's still some role with that, but Tammy's office takes in the money for that. The record keeping's all involved. So functionally, it doesn't do as much as it might in a smaller town. If we had like a group of cemetery sextons, it's got different names in different places. That's one of those that's been vacant for a while, but it's not a vacancy that we really in function notice. When there are complaints about mowing, burials, cleanup, they end up in our corner anyway. Then we try to address them from there. So it's
Be volunteering to fill that spot. I was just curious.
Yeah.
It sounds like I don't need to volunteer. It sounds like it's already taken care of.
and we do carry.
You'd have your name.
I know, I mean,
Like,
make people wonder, you know?
what
We
are
do carry a
the
stipend.
Yeah, add it to your list.
Yeah, there we go.
I was a superintendent.
Cemeteries. I just thought, I was like, oh.
I'm sure there's other stuff that goes with it. That's like a quick thumbnail sketch of it. Like I said, I've been living out here for a while.
Tri-Valley Transit. Didn't see any. names forward on that. Yeah.
So I'm unfamiliar on how this select board works. So I'm interested in helping with the emergency management stuff. And is that something that, when am I allowed to speak on that?
Oh, we just went through that and talked about putting Scott in.
Right, I was trying to get, I don't want anyone getting upset with me, so I'm confused. So am I free to speak?
Sure.
Okay, great. So my name's Richard Doolin, and I've been doing emergency management for 7 years. And I'm a director in a neighboring town. And Scott and I work very well together. I also was doing emergency management for Orange County Sheriff's Department. And I would like to be able to work with Scott in trying to build resources for this town in my role with Vermont Emergency Management Association and the town of Brookfield and the county. All three towns, I'm bringing resources in, and is always on the conversation of different facilities to be able to be used, different store items to be used during the state of emergency. So I would like to be able to be a part of that and work with Scott and be recognized as working with Scott on doing that. And I think he would be agreeable to that.
So I think if we're gonna put Scott in as the emergency management director, along with John Shangrove.
Yeah.
So you're welcome to reach out to Scott and talk to him about support you could give him or what role you could play in that.
Okay. Will he be allowed to build a command staff as the FEMA, the state, and everywhere else does? Because you have emergency manager director, then you have coordinators, you have logistics, you have
Yeah.
all of these other people that are involved in that structure.
Yeah.
So
It'll be
that's
up to Scott to
that would
decide
be-
how he handles that.
Okay.
What he sets up and what he thinks he needs
okay.
to respond.
All right.
But I would take that to him.
Right. Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Tri-Valley Transit, we have nobody, right, that's come forward.
Yeah,
On
that's
that
another
one.
one that's been vacant for, I think, a little while.
Is that a like to sit on the
On their board of directors, yeah.
lately interested?
Here we go.
And I don't know how often they meet, and then they don't know how
Yeah.
changes in service statewide that are.
You have to travel to their office, right? They do some of the meetings here, some in Middlebury,
I think so, yeah, because
some in
we're,
Bradford.
is it still called Actor? Out of.
Well, it was Actor, now it's Tri-Valley.
Oh, the whole thing's Tri Valley.
Okay, things actually don't have to drive there, they'll just give you a ride.
I don't know if they do or not, but.
Free bus travel.
They give it to everyone, but you get special.
You can.
You get to pick any
I think
seat.
most of the energy stuff, like, you know.
It might be worth reaching out to Jim Moulton, he's the
Okay.
head of it, and just
Before I
ask him
come
kind of what is
okay.
it and what am I
We'll do
committing
that.
to time wise and ask him for the roles and responsibilities, because you have some personal liability on that board.
Okay.
Speaking with my other hat on. Just so you should know before you get in there. Two Rivers, we have Chris Sargent as our representative, but we have no backup.
Yeah, that, I think I've suggested before, if one of you isn't interested in being the backup, I would suggest appointing me as the backup. And the reason why I think it's important to have one of the six of us there is that as regional conversations, whether they be land use, public safety, legislative changes start to go, I think it would be prudent to have a more direct connection to our end of the conversation. We're not the biggest town in their service area, but we are the biggest town in our county. And so as such, I think we bear more than our fair share of risk and responsibility, just from a capacity standpoint. So having somebody there, because we just don't, nothing against Chris and his prior service, there's just no connection back to the mothership here. So maybe we build in something that's a little more direct as a connection.
I've been worried about that, especially as we start on the new town plan, and we're gonna really require more conversations with Two Rivers and more coordination. Over the next few years, that we need somebody in that role who's gonna be talking with the select board and talking with the planning commission and maybe Chris is up for that. I mean, he has the background to do this work, so it would be really wonderful to have him stay in that role. But I think we need to have a conversation with him about the communication with other parts of the town. So
Who would you put as his backup for the other one that can go to those meetings?
so
That
As weird as this sounds, I kind of want this one. I do this is channeling back to, I've been in this conversation scrap, however you want to view it, since the league days. And so I have a vested long-term interest in, because I do think it's an interesting era. And I think at some point, something regional is going to have to happen, but it's got to be done the right way with the right capacity. So trying to balance everything from history to resources to personnel to personalities is.
Yeah. So
I don't normally volunteer for extra
yeah,
appointment positions.
Well, I know,
Yeah, but that one I wouldn't mind.
So the next one down then is the transportation one. And have you decided to shift that over to John to go down and meet with his peers?
That's what I was thinking there too, yeah.
White River Ambulance,
Seriously?
2 seats available. I was, happened to cross paths with Steve Webster last week, and he expressed how important it was that we try to find somebody to go down there. And that they ought to have a numbers background. Yeah, he was. He was, saying that would, he brought up some of the challenges of why their budget is as high as it is and talked about payroll and benefits and some of those pieces, but, there's definitely room there for the town to have a better price. I told him that he was welcome to put in his name.
Didn't they have very dedicated.
But he didn't write, did he?
Steve Webster about one of this funny chance.
Something will start bouncing back to you.
He was very good at sending the updates and you could like clockwork, you can count on something coming in.
Well, we do have 2 vacancies, so we could have 2 members on that board.
Yeah.
potentially.
I may not hurt, that might be able to enable sort of a sharing of load if somebody's at every single one, but not one person at every single one.
I didn't mind going. It wasn't terrible. But they have them when on Wednesday nights when I teach pottery. And so that was a little
Oh,
bit.
they're Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I would have volunteered, but that's a hard one for,
so Wednesday at 5:30, you can zoom into them. But like in the travel time is like kind of right at the moment, right? And so, I wouldn't mind being one of those seats, and I don't always teach pottery on Wednesday nights. But it would be nice to find somebody else too. I don't really have the numbers backgrounds that you're describing. But I mean, if someone else comes along and you guys want to vote me out. But at
What
least,
else do we have in the community that we could reach out to and try to get them engaged in it? Maybe something for us to think about and come back in April with.
yeah. I wonder because, I wonder if I sent it, when I sent the letter from Matt Parrish, I also followed up with a question about, there was a line in there about basically training other people in the community to have different roles. And one of the sectors they want to sort of pull in to the fold in some form are fire departments and other emergency services personnel. I don't know if it's good or bad. It might be something to think about between now and April for one of those slots, thinking about somebody in the fire service who has an interest or into our knowledge. But maybe also drawing that line of, don't committing to doing more. Without some larger policy conversation or what that looks
I was
like.
gonna say that comes with a lot of
So there's a little
impacts to the
balance,
town that they're not discussing with us too.
yeah.
But suddenly we're on the hook for emergency.
We tried
services.
advertising this representative position in Front Porch Forum.
Not recently, I'm trying to remember, it might have been years ago last time. Well, actually, no, Steve had it for a good long while. We could try to advertise too, see what happens between now and April.
You never know.
Not gonna solve that one tonight. Conservation Commission. I didn't see any conversation or any confirmation on Ian or Chandler.
I talked to Chandler today and he's was a firm maybe. And so he said he tried to resign, Rachel wouldn't let him, and I'm not really sure what that meant, but that was the answer back. So I think that he was okay with being confirmed today, and then if he changes his mind, he'll let us know. And but Brendan Barden no longer lives here. I don't know that he would. I know it's a commission, so he's not to be a resident, but I don't know if I should reach out to him and ask him if he's still. Has he been sharing for me, do you know anything about it?
Has he what?
Has he been at any of the meetings? I haven't been at any meetings.
I don't know. He only moved pretty recently, so.
Yeah.
I can text him right now.
Should we confirm Ian again and then see what happens?
I was gonna say, you can always reappoint them, and if they're not here or interested, it either gets vacated or they can vacate it.
It's one good way to find out, right? They just.
Congratulations.
We don't ask people if they know how to swim, we throw them in the water to see if they can swim. And if they can, then we'll fish.
So DRB, we had Matt and Chris wanting to re-up.
They're two of the longer tenure members, so it's nice to have a mix of, well, that's somewhat a tenure group, you know, look at it.
Do we want to have any alternatives to that, alternates or?
We didn't have anybody else express
Well,
interest.
yeah, but should we like advertise it?
Water, wastewater,
We I think we need to take Mariah off because she hasn't been coming to any meetings and she hasn't really been responding to any emails either, so. And then we'll be down to 5 members, but really 5 is probably a fine number for, I think it's officially a 7-member community, but 5 is really plenty to do.
Are those other names right, Larry, on that?
Yes,
I wasn't sure.
yes.
Okay.
Yep, basically, as long as we have Suzanne, we're all set. I'm serious. She's amazing.
all right. We have an East Valley Community Group. I don't know that we need this group anymore.
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, you're back up at the top. Okay, I thought we were on another page, but never mind.
Oh, I went down the left side.
Yeah, no, you're good. I'm the one who's not. I'll get that here.
The group's charge was around the hall. That's sitting, they've decided to make their own group to do community events and whatnot over there. I don't know that we need a town committee for this anymore.
You could decommission it. And fire it back up if for some reason.
There's something going on over there.
Right.
Okay.
I suspect that's the right path based on.
We're gonna bring on a few more.
No, it all kind of makes sense. Appropriation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think this will all fit together. I don't want to say nicely, but there's a continuum that makes a little bit of sense now. Based on things that have happened. Nothing bad. I'm not trying to be cryptic.
Fire Services Advisory Committee. Is David chairing that? Yes.
They have they? I went to a few in a row. I don't know if they've had a couple since.
3?
Yeah.
3 or so meetings since he took over.
Did we ever write a new charge? We talked about being right, kind of a focus for that group, but Alan's sort of the merger document with what they're doing.
I don't think so. A little bit of he's trying to settle in and figure out what's going on, and a little bit of we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've been to a couple of them. That's a strong current. And then the first one, a couple I went to, we were still talking about the OSHA. That was when before they had delayed all of the OSHA changes that would dramatically up in that apple cart of rural volunteer fire service in America. So small stake stuff.
Thanks. Planning Commission.
You have an applicant for one of the vacancies because Sheila's listed and she stepped aside.
This was the individual that had just moved to town from Missouri.
Maggie, yep, Emerson Terrace.
Sounds like she has a very relevant background.
Did we advertise the position?
Yeah,
After Sheila left?
I posted it on Front Porch
Yeah.
Forum. I got quite a number of responses. And she was the only person who followed all the way through and actually sent in a letter of interest.
Yeah, she's the only one. I think we heard from a couple people asked, or one guy came in and asked about it. Somebody else maybe did it. That's the only one that's come in. Masters in Public Administration, you know, he does. Other folks get those.
They're just getting away.
Piece of paper.
Yeah, that's right. I don't even know where mine is, honestly. I think it's at my house, but.
Anybody have any concerns with that one?
Yeah, looking forward to having a really strong group as we start on the town plan and stuff. And we'll still be looking for someone else to 7-member board. And I had actually, when I got on it, I was actually gone on as a voting member, but and I was the chair for a while, but Matt is now the chair. And I would actually prefer to be the select board, you know, the ex officio for this and have a full 7-member group. I think the more eyes we can have on this work, the better. And I feel like being a voting member is going to make a huge difference. And I did look into this at the request of Sunny Holt, and apparently the VLCT recommends that select board members not be voting members on the planning commission. You can be, but their best what they recommend is best practices that unless you really have trouble finding people, you know, to do it, which we have in the past. But I think we've got, you know, 6 solid people right now, and over the next couple of months, we'll see if we can find a 7th person to fill that other slot.
When you look at the skill sets and the backgrounds of the folks that will be on here, what's missing? Especially if we're doing a town plan rewrite, like do we have a member of the agriculture community? Do we have, if we look at all the components? I'm just wondering if that's what we do, is target somebody from something that's missing from being represented at the
You know,
table.
I'm not sure what Caroline's like sort of day job is.
She doesn't have one.
Doesn't have one right now.
No, but she comes from an agriculture background. She's got some education in her.
Okay. I was wondering.
He had a.
Like, so,
Some kind of background.
okay. Yeah,
But just maybe think about like sort of what's missing.
yeah.
What do we-
We've got people from all over the town. So we don't have somebody from the far eastern edge, but I'll but I think it's mostly pretty well balanced. Yeah, I
It's
don't know.
not just geographic, but like what's out there that's not at the table? Like, do we have a business member? Do we have a agriculture and education? We don't need the answer tonight, but
Yeah.
maybe that's what we do, is think about sort of what
Yeah,
wouldn't be at the table for a town plan that we could.
yeah, someone who,
Target somebody.
who's running a business, like an active business in town. We don't really have something like that right here. Not something that has like a real footprint.
There's no big though.
It is. It is.
There's fresh chocolate on there.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, the conversations that we've had since most of these people have been on have been really, like, really substantive, like really substantive conversations, really thoughtful.
I wonder if you know somebody from past and present life that might be interested in Jeff role.
I'd be interested in that.
Jeff's role. I'm just saying how that fill the gaps. We have a couple.
Yeah, so if people want to ask around.
Well, we made some progress. That's
Yeah.
good. All right, let's move on. Consider purchase of the heat pump controls and HVAC upgrades for the towns.
For the last. It's happened on and off here, but for the last year through cooling season, then again through heating season, we've. Been nursing, limping, however you want to think of it, the heat pump system. So primarily the heating and cooling is provided by a sort of a large, there's just the one, right? Commercial heat pump kind of off this end of the building. And there's a boiler that backs that up in the heating season when temperature's too cold or demand outstrip supply, or there's a set of overlapping controls that are supposed to work automatically. Well, it turns out that the unit we have is about 18 years old. These have, what did Harold, the Alliance guy say, 12 years was the useful life, 10 to 12? And these units last two on average.
No,
It's 2 years. Yeah. So this particular unit is a little bit past its useful life. It's not off the ground. It's supposed to have 18 inches of clearance, so we've had issues with freezing and other things based on snow. It's not undercover. So it's not functioning the way that it should. And then the controls we have for the Mitsubishi heat pump units, we have one computer that they work on. It's the one in my office, which is one of the older desktops. And it's because you need a very specific version of JavaScript from not very recently that you run through a Firefox browser. Yeah, thank you for another first. Another first.
Firefox is actually a nonprofit browser.
Is it?
When you want to compare it to some of the other options that we rely on that are listening in to every person.
And so what this would do, and basically we looked at repair costs, all the component costs, control costs, being able to control heating and cooling functions with everything from an app to a set sort of tablet in a control room. Ease of usage. This is the proposal we came up with. It's a little easier to stay with Alliance and integrate the system since they've been our provider. We've got both of the components. There was a little informal check with another provider just to make sure the cost was reasonable or at least what could be expected. And we were within range there. We would pay for this out of the building reserve, which currently has sufficient funding for that. And then the only other thing out of that reserve that's sort of being held until the project moves is the cupola of the library. So we have plenty after subtracting the 142 or 144, whatever it is, out of that. And so it's a little bit out of schedule. It would have been in a building plan at some point sooner than later anyway, but we can go and look for different energy efficiency grants to see if maybe we can backfill or supplant some of that reserve money and then hold it. We can do that as well, but this lets us get this scheduled. Better zone controls. The zones are kind of chopped up. Our zone is tied into the conference room and then the old buildings on different zones, and it would be really nice to let everybody have a little more control over their comfort features too, because the sisters like it 90. Tammy wants it either 90 or 50. Judy wants it to be like 12. Which works for me because I like it around 12 to 15. So we're good.
I don't think you know everyone's preferences.
We hear about them. We've had this conversation.
So if you can imagine, this is my biggest concern because until we change out the heat pump, there is no cooling system. We have heat, but we will have no cooling.
It was,
Oh, no.
it was unbearable in here parts of the summer where it was like,
When it wasn't working.
I would imagine people were getting sick from it. Yeah,
It really only bothered me.
well, but I think it's something that we should definitely do. Otherwise, we just keep repairing the system and it's gonna cost.
And it's going down. This is the I shouldn't tell, this is the longest stretch we've had where I haven't had to log in, reset, change.
It's because it's not on. It's not working.
Well, that's right. It's turned all the way off, isn't
It's
it?
off.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
that'll
working
do it.
well.
Then you can't jinx it. Solve the problem. Yeah,
But no, we were limping along at one point by having they wrote into the code for the other half of the system, a special turn it on toggle so that I could override it. The problem is that you couldn't set a thermostat to the override. So there was one day I had to turn it on. Was it over the weekend even? Or
Yes,
overnight?
yes.
And so when they got in here, they read the thermostats and it was like 98 degrees or something. Insane because you just let it run or freeze it up. So we're like, well, let's let it run because it was over one of those cold weekends. So this should work a lot better.
Any motion to approve this?
So moved. I've been convinced.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did Judy, you're cooling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything for you.
That's town meeting.
We put this on, we do this every year. Where we just, if you want to do a little recap or things that went well, things that you'd like to do differently. When okay. It was a little longer, I didn't pack enough snacks, those are personal problems, but
I think it was actually 18 minutes shorter than last year.
was it?
Yeah.
I could black that out.
Not that Molly's counting.
So I went and looked at last town meeting, and I was like, how long was this? And then I looked and I was like, wow, we stopped the meeting just before we hit last year.
Ah,
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's weird.
shame on me for mismanaging snacks twice in a row.
Yours next year.
Can get it right.
Who is actually like, it's the town's town meeting, but it's not the select board's town meeting, correct?
Right.
So the select board doesn't even have to be there.
Well, if you don't want.
I mean, they look to us to answer questions and whatever, and I get that, but
Everything we have to do for the Australian ballot items, we technically do on that meeting. We did on Monday, it was Monday this year, the Monday before.
right.
That's the one we have to have for those statute, or for the Australian ballot items by statute. And those are the ones where people are supposed to be able to ask questions about the budget. To talk about the articles from the floor after that is more of a grace than a requirement, really. But I don't know, it's one of those, I don't think anybody's had that fight because it's really the fight you want to have.
No, it's when we call a special meeting of the town and whatnot, the select board does it and we ask the moderator to run it, we get a meeting ahead of time with the moderator to talk about. Don't drag everything out quite so much, like, but I was thinking like, we don't have that with this. Right, as soon as they vote a moderator, that's the one that runs that.
That becomes the moderator's meeting to a certain extent. We could invite
There
the
was some
moderator
stuff there,
in.
and it's just like, come on. I don't think it had to be that long.
My only comment on it was that I heard a lot of people still not knowing when it was, so I'm just wondering if there's any way we could do more outreach, if,
A lot of.
if we're gonna do it, we might as well make sure people know it's happening. and when.
Well, the handful of people that come voted it to be
Yeah.
Saturday instead of.
But I saw a lot of like, oh, I didn't know I wanted to go.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's not, not super easy to find the information. It wasn't on the town calendar when I was. So. Just, being a little bit, and, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to know to look at the sidebar, not the calendar. I mean, some of that will be fixed when the new website rolls out here in April, May is the next. You were in that conversation, right?
Yeah.
We're coming up on a milestone.
End of
for
April.
End of
I think.
April, yeah. The new website and calendar will be a little more integrated with everything, easier to maintain. Yeah, so we were everywhere we needed to be by statute, but we could certainly be in other places.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that says you can't do more.
I guess I just worry how unbalanced it becomes if it's people like.
I
know about it and-
putting it on the calendar, it was on
Yeah.
the homepage, it was on the town clerk's page, it was on Front Porch Forum, it was on Facebook. I didn't even think about popping it on the calendar, but.
And then the 4 or 5 public places, because we had it here, library,
Newspaper.
Lloyd's,
Newspaper several times.
then out in the East Randolph Post Office, right, too, yeah. So we had a couple of physical spots.
You wanna go to the East Randolph Post Office and just read the bulletin board?
I mean, I knew it, but it
Took 4 hours.
getting questions, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea. I will say it's. Every year I've done a town meeting, every year one of the pieces of feedback from the public is, I'd have gone if I'd have known when it is. It's either gonna be Saturday or Tuesday, so
Yeah.
you got a 50-50 shot at the worst.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can try to spread the word.
But your response should be, would you really?
Can we put banners up?
Oh my God.
It's just an event.
We could, because they'd be a town sponsored event, it would be allowed under the ordinance, yeah. Clearly allowed.
Did Chandler put it, hasn't Chandler in the past put it on their marquee?
Oh, I thought it was.
It might have been.
I actually know, I got by it.
I think last year they forgot to put it on, but I think, they've done this year.
As much as people complained about that when it first went in, there appears to be quite a few of us that just fades it right out. when we drive through town, so. None of us can answer that question. All right, any more on town meeting? Are you ready for the manager's report?
Well, it's even, yeah, the notes,
Is it?
it's official, John declared it. We posted all the roads, and so we work, if anybody reaches out to you, because they gotta get a Home Depot delivery, have them work with John and the crew, because if the temperatures drop and we can schedule it for mornings, we'll try to figure out a less impactful way. Folks to get out there, they were out. They've been almost a week doing that, they're gonna switch to some pothole work here too, because it's also, you don't call it pothole season, but this is when the crop seems to really spring up. So they've been out trying to do those pieces. We'll touch base on the sign ordinance review from the planning commission. We're gonna have them in April. What else is in there? We delivered one of Scott's new vehicles to the place where they get the lights and the radios and all the other stuff put in. I got to drive the marked cruiser all the way there, but I enjoyed it. I got some really weird looks because I was not dressed like an officer.
And you got a big smile on your face?
Big smile, big beard, flannel shirt. People are, what the heck? Steal that?
Not gonna lie, you kind of look like a little kid driving that car, just saying.
Sure, teenagers, what I heard.
Appreciate whoever described me as mature.
Any photos?
No photos.
You did not record this event?
Well, actually, I didn't see which way were the cruiser cameras pointed. Am I actually caught?
Yeah, negative. And that car that I was driving wasn't fixed up with all the, good stuff, so you were free and clear.
So we basically drove we drove to Canada, I think. I'm not even quite sure. We went, dropped the truck off. They're gonna put all the stuff in it, the decals on it. Then the second one will come. Hopefully around next month.
No decals on this. Decals go somewhere else.
Oh, it'll go somewhere else? Okay. And we'll take the Dodge Ram, because this is the one that this will replace, take the decals off, all the radios and other stuff are out, and that will become a general service truck. And one of the ideas to discuss, we were gonna use it for a variety of needs, but this might be the way to solve the UTV problem as well. Where we don't let anybody get a truck ahead of anybody else, but there is one accessible that's unlikely to be in service at the time they need it.
And it's okay if you're right, but other people can use it too.
This would stay here, live here, be the second manager's vehicle, general service or general pool vehicle, I gotta think about. And the CRV eventually will get rid of, but it's helpful enough for Chris and his crew when they read meters and do troubleshooting that. You know, we'll leave that right with them. Reduce, reuse, recycle. The old Durango though, is that, are we trading that in or? That's the disposition plan for that, right?
That was a choice that we haven't finalized yet, whether it gets traded in or something above. So I guess we need to chat about that at some point. The other Tahoe won't touch down for another month or so. The production date is the end of this month.
I'm gonna drive a Mark Cruiser again. I'm doing this again, just so everybody knows.
We need
This time I'll have a
evidence
picture
now,
to take.
yes.
That's all I have. But I got something else to add when we get into executive session, an update on the process we've been going through, but other than that.
So we need a motion to find that we need to go into executive session.
Just before we do that, I did hear back from Brendan. At first, he was like, I can't do it. I'm not a resident anymore. And I was like, no, actually, we can. And then he wrote back. It was actually pretty funny. He said, oh, basically, all right, well, if nobody else wants to do it, we're gonna hang in there. But basically, if we can find someone to fill his spot, we'd happy to.
But we'll appoint him, and then if somebody else steps forward,
So.
if all the other seats get filled, and then somebody else comes forward.
But the planning commission folks should, I mean, we'll leave it up to them. They should really advertise for someone or find someone to fill his spot.
Yeah, they're usually pretty good at signing candidates from somewhere.
That's the conservation one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, over in East Randolph, Bob,
It's on it.
he's on it? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I was gonna say he'd be a big candidate.
Ask him it.
You're welcome, everybody, yes. You're helpful. Okay, can we recess the select board meeting, do the liquor control board, and then go to the executive, or should we do it opposite?
Could, yeah.
What's your preferred?
Let's go on executive, Sharon.
Okay, I'm not sure. Okay,
We'll pull that one back up.
okay, cool, okay, gotcha,
Scott.
okay, yep, gotcha.
So first we have to find that we need to go in.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Now a motion to go in.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're inviting Scott in.
Yeah.
So moved.
Just amending, like,
Yeah.